Hi, welcome to Expert Mom. Today I'm going to talk about the Nag-Free Project. I have been nagging my kids for years and years and years, 2 decades actually, and I realized I was under way more stress than they were. It didn't bother them, It bothered me tremendously when the lights were all left on. And I talked to them about the energy bill and how much it cost, and that every time they leave that light on, that's money. I've dealt with so many issues with shoes. They'll drop their shoes at the doorway, and I say, no, we need to leave them in the closet. Or they'll walk up to the edge of the carpet and they'll drop their shoes. So wherever the carpet starts, you'll see shoes. And that might not be a big deal if you have 1 or 2 kids. But I have 6 kids. One's in college, so she's not around as much. But 5 sets of shoes. Anyway, I can go on and on. And what I realized was I needed a strategy to deal with this. 1, so I don't go crazy, but 2, I need to raise up responsible children that become responsible adults. And so I developed a strategy, and I'm going to share with you 5 steps to the strategy, and it works. It's been probably 4 months now, and my life is so much better because really it's clean. They take care, they're responsible for their own actions. They take care of their own things. And it's just wonderful. Strategy number 1. First of all, I have a rough draft of ideas for positive behaviors that I want to see in my children. So I do a little homework in advance, and I think about all the things that really bother me, and I create some behaviors and I always make it a positive. So clean room, turn lights off, respect others, all the books returned in the bookcase, honesty, respect furniture. And so they'll jump on the furniture, like on their heads, and flip, and we don't want that anymore. So I'm just saying respect furniture instead of don't jump on, So I'm trying to make it more positive sounding instead of negative. But they understand during our parent meeting what respect furniture means. And so toys in bin, just a wide variety. And I'll have a video that you can link to, and it's very specific as to all the possible positive behaviors you may want to add to your list. Anyway, so I come up with that in advance. I just write it down on my paper. I don't share that with the kids, and then I write ideas for consequences. So I kind of do a little preliminary, and that's important because you want to make sure you accomplish the things you want to accomplish, the behaviors you want to accomplish. And so a little thought process there. I'll link you to exactly what I've used, and you can just pull things from there and make it personal, because there's certain things that you probably don't like compared to what the kids, my kids do. So anyway, so after doing that, I meet with the kids. I also had my husband there too, and so we all met together, and I said, okay, what are the positive behaviors that you should have? I said, my job as a parent is to help you all become amazing adults. And so we are all in training. And so what are some things that you guys need to do to show amazing behaviors, positive behaviors, responsible behaviors? And so they started listing off things. And so I'd write them on the board, and I write on the left-hand side of the board all the positive behaviors that I wanted to see. And so then what I would do is, when it kind of would, it'd lull for a little bit. They didn't really have I need more ideas. So then I just say, what do you think about pushing your chair in after dinner? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. And then so I'd write that down. And then from there it said, okay, so now on the other side of the board, we're going to talk about some consequences, things that you would have to do if you did not display those behaviors. And so from there, I would put down, I wouldn't put down anything. I'd ask them first, so what do you feel would be good consequences? And so then they would start naming some things. And so I would put it on the board and maybe add a little bit more because I want it to be, fairly good consequence. And so we go through that until they were like, couldn't remember, anything else. And so then I would just say, what about brushing the dogs for 20 minutes? And like, oh yeah, that's a good one. And then I would just start probing the actions that I wanted to have for the consequence. So they were a part of the whole process. They agreed when I would make a suggestion. And anyway, so we would create the board together. Ownership is so important in this process. And then we all agree, and you may even want to have them sign a document. They agree to adhere to the positive behaviors. If not, a consequence will be given. And really what I do is I allow them to choose a consequence. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to step 2. First, I want to make a disclaimer. This does not replace chores. So my kids still need to do chores just because they're a part of the family and they're a part of being in the home. And so they need to do some basic chores. And sometimes the basic chores are on the list of consequences. And so I just clarify, no, this is just a daily chore. If my child lives in my house, they need to help maintain the house as well. Anyway, so for strategy number 2, rules of the plan. All week, each consequence can only be done once, except for brushing dogs and exercising dogs. Those can be done daily. And on the right-hand side, when they receive a consequence, basically, if they don't do one of the positive behaviors, I'll say, oh, you forgot to take your plate to the sink after you ate dinner, and so you need to go choose a consequence. So nice, sweet, it's easy. This plan, this Nag-Free Project is amazing because I don't have to get mad anymore. It has nothing to do with me. They end up spending some time as a result of not doing that behavior. It's beautiful. And so I just mentioned, okay, go sign up for a consequence. After 7, they just need to write their name on the consequence, and the next day they can fulfill that consequence. If it's earlier than 7 and they have that time to do the consequence, they do it immediately. Now, they cannot do any type of playing or on computers or on their phones unless they do their consequence. And so that's an important factor too, because they can't just say, oh, no big deal, I'll just, they need some driving force to get it done. On Sunday night, I revise the plan and erase all of the names, the check marks, and just if there's something I was missing in the plan, I just put that in. And so that's every Sunday. So then the consequences can be redone the next week. Strategy number 3, accountability. Accountability is a big issue with success in this program. And so it's important that once they display inappropriate behavior, that they don't display what is on the board for positive behaviors. I give them a consequence. And if you start, let's say you remind them, so many kids will just kind of end up waiting for you to remind them because they know you're going to remind them. And so just some kids are like that. And so if you continue reminding, then they'll just wait. They won't do it until they hear a reminding. The goal of this program, the goal is that they do it on their own when it needs to be done, not when mom reminds them. You really gonna ruin the whole project here if you will allow reminding. And so you need a backbone. Just get in there and you're like, I'm gonna do this, and you just stick with it. And if you stick with it, then kids will learn, wow, it's so much better to display positive behaviors than spend time working and doing one of those consequences. It's just, they learn quicker. Some kids, although they may take a few weeks. Other kids, one day of getting a consequence and they're done. They are going to put those shoes away. They're going to turn those lights off. So accountability is the big issue, and it makes a huge difference. Strategy number 4, revisit the board. Now, we oftentimes have to revisit that board. I went on a vacation with my husband, and when I returned, I had to revisit the board with certain children. So you could do it as a whole group, or the child that suddenly forgot all the positive behaviors. Also, if you have like 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds, kids that maybe can't read, pictures are another way that you can do a board for the younger kids, a board for the older kids, or just a little board. And it might be just 5 things on your board that you have little pictures of drawing, and those are their expectation. Number 5, no negative emotion needed at all. You can simply, if they leave or do something that's not according to the positive behaviors, you just simply sign it for a consequence. And so the stress is no longer on you, it's on them. Now, if they start having a fit about that, then I warn them. I say, if you continue to act this way because you've earned a consequence, then you'll earn another consequence. And then also another aspect too is quality. The quality of work done varies depending on the child and the age. And so I do have higher expectations of higher quality work in the older kids. I expect them to do it really, really well. Whereas the younger kids, if their quality is poor, I'll use that as a teaching moment. Lastly, it is important to love those kids. So through this whole process, I'm hugging, kissing them, loving on them, and just basically showing that I care, whether they've done their positive behaviors or not. Because my behavior, if I get upset that they're not doing, it doesn't matter if I'm upset or not, because they will deal with their consequence. And so for me, it was just a weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to get angry anymore. Instead, I just simply needed to have them deal with the consequence. It's just such a beautiful plan, and consistency and hard work by the mom and the dad. And you can do this if you have one parent that's not necessarily being active in pursuing this. Oh, baby bird just hit the window. I don't know what I should do. Oh yeah, I was saying, if you don't have one parent on board, or if you're a single parent, no big deal. Okay, it can come from one parent. If the other parent doesn't follow the positive behaviors, no big deal. You're not their parent, and kids need to understand that. I hope you enjoy this process. Add, delete, do whatever you want, but definitely do something. Don't just keep nagging. All right. Love those kids. Be blessed.